Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vassell and Sam Healy.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia sneaking in here. Hello.
Sam Healy, what's up, folks? Welcome back
To a review that's been somewhat requested.
just a tad. We've
Never
had a
heard
few
of
messages.
it. Never heard of this game.
All right, so Fallout, the board game from Fantasy Flight Games. I'm actually not sure.
What?
What's
the
Andrew
question?
Fischer. I was going to say who the designer is. I didn't actually know who the designers were.
Yeah.
Now, Fallout is one of the most popular video games in the world, for sure. I have played it a little. You've played it a good chunk.
Yes, I've played a lot of
Fallout
some of
3
the older ones.
And
anyway,
some of Fallout 4, you said.
yeah, a little tiny bit of Fallout 4, which is technically what this is based on, and I've played a lot of 3 and a lot of New Vegas.
I've played that much.
What's wrong with you? It's awesome.
They don't make it for the Xbox.
I'm
Or
more
do
of
they
a-
make it for Xbox? Oh,
more of
never
a-
mind.
I've got a PS.
PS2.
Oh, I've got a PS3.
Ooh.
Wait, but if you could play it, would you?
I don't know. I'm more of a Skyrim kind of guy.
It's dark and scurry.
So
It's
Skyrim
scurry
at some
is
points.
correct. Okay, so anyhow, that's the background of this. They tried to make it into a board game, so we'll be taking a look at it from those perspectives. Since Sam hasn't played the video game, he can come into it saying this is what it's like as a board game,
Yeah.
and we'll hear the other perspective. But first, you might be wondering a little bit about how it plays. Here's some of the concepts in the game.
Some. Now, the goal of Fallout is to gain the most influence in the wasteland and be the person who has the most and into the game, depending on the number of players that are there. For example, in a 4-player game, that threshold is 8 influence. Once one person has 8 or more influence, then they can declare the end of the game. In a 3-player game, it's 9 influence, 2 players 10, and then in a single player mode, it is 11 influence. Now, how much influence you have is derived from a combination of the influence cards, or the agenda deck rather, and the scenario card, which the game comes with 4 different ones. The basic, I guess you could call introductory scenario, and then 3 other scenarios which will change how the map looks. And then it also on the back tells you the 2 factions that are vying for power. For example, in the Capital Wasteland, you're looking at the Enclave and the Brotherhood of Steel. In the Pit, you're looking at the Rebel Slaves and the Slavers. And then Far Harbor, you have a couple of different things going on as well. So that's a couple of things that the scenario tiles or cards do. But generally speaking, you have this agenda deck. And the agenda deck is going to give you, first of all, influence. And it's going to give you additional influence if these factors are true. So depending on how many cards you have, you can only have a maximum of 4 of these influence cards at any given point in time, and that will determine how many points you have. Other agenda cards, like this star agenda card here, will say that it gives you 1 influence, but it will give you +1 for each space the star has advanced farther than the shield. All right, so that's where we come back to this one. There are certain effects in the game that will, quests and stuff like that, that will cause these to move further down like so. So if later on in the game this is the situation, this card here would be worth 1, 2, 3 points for the survivor that owns it, because you're getting 1 point and then you're getting 1 more point for each space past the shield that the star has gone. Another way that the game can end is if one of these 2 faction power tokens reaches the final space in the track. Now, if that final advancement causes one of the survivors to have enough points to win the game, then they can trigger the end of the game and win. But if that is not the case, this faction wins and all of the survivors lose. So during the course of your turn, you're able to take just 2 actions, and you can choose to do the same 2 actions on a single turn. Those actions are exploring, moving, questing, encountering, fighting, or camping. The explore action is when your person is adjacent to an unexplored tile. And so one explore action would allow him to flip over one of the tiles, making sure that the arrow is oriented up, and that is the explore action. Now, when you do this, you have one of these enemy icons showing, you will take an enemy tile and place it face up there. So we have here a Raider Psycho that is possibly going to do some damage if we get into an attack. Now let's say that this being my first turn, I want to see what both of these are. So my first explore action was here. I could now choose to make a move action and move on to that tile if I want to. But I want to see what this one is. So my second action for the turn will be to turn over this tile as well. So we go ahead and turn it over. And there is another enemy icon, which means we have to take one that matches. And of course, put it face up right here. And that is a rad scorpion. That's not nice. Now the move action is exactly that. You're going to be moving around to these different spaces on the board, but you do have to be careful because some places have difficult terrain, which take 2 movement points to move through. And then other areas like this one right here are radiation zones, and you will actually take radiation damage on your player sheet, your player board here, if you walk through or stay in that area. Now, most people have a movement of 2, but the Brotherhood Outcast here has a T-45 set of power armor on, and it actually slows him down because it's so heavy and bulky, so he only actually has a movement of 1 unless he spends a cap, which is the currency of the game, to be able to move a little bit further, or rather normally like everyone else. So in this specific case, we see that there are a couple of different things. We can go fight the Raider Psycho over here by spending a cap and moving 1, 2. Or I can save my money and just go fight this Rad Scorpion by just simply moving my normal movement of 1. Seeing as how the Raider Psycho over here is going to give me a loot card if I attack it and am able to kill it, then I might want to go ahead and move over there. And now, since this is also an aggressive enemy, as soon as I move into that, that will cause a fight. And that brings us to another action that you can take on your turn, and that is fighting. Now, fighting involves rolling your VATS dice, and each enemy has a vulnerability or areas of vulnerability on their token. This one is legs and torso. So if I roll, for example, this would count as 1 hit in one of those 2 areas. But that would mean I have to roll another one that will count for the other area, like this. And so I would take all 3 dice and roll them. And I'm trying to get 2 dice that have either a torso or a leg on it. So with this particular roll, I have 2 torsos, which equals 2 health points or 2 hits, which is how many he has. So I am going to knock this guy out. But because I rolled a star here, that's going to cause a number of 2 damage to me, and I have to lose 2 hit points like so. However, my power armor over here allows me to ignore 2 hits from other people, so I don't actually need to take those hits at all. My power armor sucked up the attack that the Raider Psycho levied against me. Now I am able to draw a loot card and add that to my inventory. Now, additionally, when you kill one of these guys, you're also going to be getting a number of experience points equal to the number that is here, which simply means that you're going to move this gray marker here for every space that you have a letter. So it would be 1, 2, like this. Whenever you complete the circuit, reaching all the way over here, then you'll be able to draw another 2 of these letters, pick one, and add it in there. If you decide to choose one that you already have, you'll be able to get one of these perk cards, which are one-time uses, but they're really strong. For example, you have Toughness here, which says discard to recover all of your hit points. Until the end of your turn, when you would suffer damage, suffer no damage instead. Now, another kind of action that you can take during your turn is the encounter action. So let's say that the Brotherhood Outcast was here at the Red Rocket Station. If he is here and he wants to encounter this location, he will simply draw a card from the encounter deck that matches its icon and flip it over. And this gives him, this one particularly, gives him 1, 2, or 3 different options that he can do. So normally, a person other than himself will read this text, the italicized text, and then the bold options that are available to him. For example, here it says you approach a section of the structure that doesn't show much looter activity. You wonder why it's been avoided until you hear the scuttling. So number 1 says rush in and kill the critters. Number 2 says send them after someone else. Adjacent survivor is necessary. Or number 3, grab something and run. So the person who is playing the Brotherhood Outcast would choose option 1, 2, or 3, and then certain things will happen after that. Now, while you are encountering a location, it is possible for you to be able to go and shop, possibly sell some of the things that you already have, buy other things to upgrade your equipment, and so forth and so on. Not all of the encounter cards allow you to do that, but some of them do. Now, as mentioned in the last part, talking about encounters, there is another action that you can take, and that's a quest action. And because I don't want to spoil any of the quests for you, I'll just show you the one that's in the rule book right now. And it works very similarly to an encounter where there is a requirement, and then there is a reward if you meet that requirement or objective. So that is another action that you can take that will gain you more influence, more points, higher prestige, that type of thing. And then finally, what you can do in your turn is rest or camp. And basically, if you camp, you're going to be able to gain 3 hit points, and you'll also gain the well-rested trait, which basically can be used as a reroll during another action of your choice on a subsequent turn. At the end of the round, we go through the enemy activation where we take one of these agenda cards and flip it over. And then at the bottom of the card from, let's see, what is that? Yeah, left to right, we would activate these characters, these enemy guys that are out on the board. We don't have any of these guys, but we do have one of these, which means we're going to move 1 towards the nearest survivor. And if there's a tie, it would be the one that has the lowest hit points. So there isn't a tie, but it would move 1 space toward like this. Then after all movements like that have been made, any other activations are simply flipped over. So in this case, the mutant over here would be flipped over to its active side. Once all of the activations have carried out, then it becomes the first player's turn, and rounds are carried out in that fashion with the players, survivors, taking actions, only 2 of them per turn, until one of those in-game conditions are met. And that's how you play Fallout.
The gameplay itself, I don't believe is that complex. I mean,
No,
understanding what to do, you really only have like 3 or 4 things to do in your turn.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Except there is some fiddliness, I think, like when you kill a monster, put a new monster on, you know, there's a little bit of...
Like the respawn system is a little messy to remember if you did it, didn't do it. Because they'll move, and then you're like, wait, did that guy move from there earlier? Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
There's a little bit of that.
It's an odd concept. In Bethesda games, they have a respawning thing that happens, but it's pretty long of a period, right? It's not like kill a monster and
see
then
it happen. Yes.
Right, but you can go clear out. You can go clear out an area. You can come back there a few days later. It's still cleared out. You come back 2 months later. They're back.
Yes.
Right. That's just how it works. Yeah. Happens in Skyrim too.
Could happen. Yes.
In Skyrim, I go around and I'm like, it's been about a few months. I'm gonna go kill all the dragons again, and so
Oh, wow.
I swing through.
I never realized that. Usually whenever
so big, you usually don't go
in
back.
Skyrim, well, sometimes I'll go back and I'll find myself in a place that has a bunch of dead bodies in it. And I'm like, oh, been here before.
Maybe it wasn't you.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure that the monster part of the game, though, is the strongest. I think it's hard to do monsters in a board game. In a video game, you see them walking around, they'll see you, they come at you, you run away, they they turn around and go back. They might pursue you, but I mean, it feels, you know, they're computer generated, but they try to give them feelings. Here, it's definitely all mechanical. The monsters are just walking around fighting.
Just coming after you no matter how far away you are. Is that what you mean?
And I don't know any way that game could have done it otherwise.
No. I mean, I think it's fine. I think the less sort of thrilling part is the dice combat, which I think is partly what you may be reflecting on.
I was going to get to that. I'm not a huge fan of the combat. I think the combat's okay. You roll dice. You try to get a certain number of hits. You can re-roll if you have the certain letters. The letter system is interesting, right? Okay, these letters work.
Yes.
And then some weapons, but for a while you got nothing. But it's not like in these games, normally you got some weak stuff. You're like, all right, I'm going to go kill some weak enemies and get some cooler stuff and slowly build up. It didn't feel like that was in this game. The random stuff, the weapons and things you got could be anywhere.
Sure.
And bad guys are pretty hard from the beginning.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we kind of thought about at the very beginning of the game, was the fact that we thought those bad guys were really strong.
Well, the idea that you start at like 10 health and any little old dude might
15.
knock off, is it 15 you start
15.
at? But any little old encounter might knock you down 4, let's say.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I mean, that translates into you just need to rest a lot, which is
what we do in the games anyway.
Or
I'm
pick,
like,
your, or
time
pick
to
your
rest.
fights. Or pick your fights.
Or pick your fights, but if
Yeah.
they're coming at you, you can't run away usually very effectively. You know, at some point you'll have to fight.
Especially the ranged guys. The ranged guys were a real pain.
Right. I liked, I thought the combat was fine. The dice combat aspect is, this is kind of weird to say in a game that's a fairly big game, but it's a little simplistic. I mean, I like that they used the symbology from the game, from the video game, right? Like, headshot, torso, this and that. That's cute. I mean, you can kind of see through it, right? I mean, it could be a number. It's kind of obvious what they're replacing, the head only shows up on one of the 6 sides, and it was a 6. You know what I mean?
But you know what? Because of that dice system, when you're playing this game or other games, when you see enemies, your skills get better and you are nailing them. In this game, there's a chunk of randomness at the beginning.
Well, yes, and randomness is, I think, definitely the part I want to talk about the most.
Yeah,
so we
that's true.
might as well. So, again, I like a lot of it in the game. I like the theme, obviously, but I'm the one that's most familiar with it, and I think the combat is fine if a little simplistic. I like the upgrade system that you develop your character, all of that stuff.
Upgrade system's great. I really like how that works.
I like getting new special cards. I like having a backpack, kind of stuff you can keep in stock. That's all fantastic. The game is ridiculously random, especially for a game that is not 30 minutes. I can deal with a bunch of randomness in a game that's 30 minutes, because it's 30 minutes. This is a large, involved, combat-heavy, drawn-out game.
Yeah.
And it is just so incredibly random.
I think it's more specific. It's more needful, I guess, to specify what part of the randomness you don't like. I don't have a problem with the dice combat and the randomness
fine.
that's there. I think that actually fits pretty well. But it's the point system and the randomness that is found
it's how
there.
you win, basically.
Because you're basically just top decking cards. You got to go do this quest, or you got to go over here and interact with that place over there, or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, to gain more points, you're just top decking cards.
Right.
And then on top of that, you can only have 4 of them out at any given time. So at some point when you've maxed out your cards, you're literally just going to top deck to see if you can replace your cards.
Right.
And try to win that way.
It makes me think of like Ticket to Ride scoring. And what I mean by that is at the beginning of Ticket to Ride, you get some train connections, and you're like, okay, I have a focus. I know what I'm going for. That's true here too. At the beginning, I'm like, I'm going to help this faction out, not these guys. Great. And then near the end of the game, you draw cards and you go, huh, that one's complete. Score. That's great. In Ticket to Ride. In this game, I might literally draw a card and it's worth 1 point or it's worth 4. How many do you need to win?
Well, it depends on the number of players, but
it's like 11, right, or something like that, or 9,
if
or
you're single player, it's 11. It goes all the way down to 8.
right. So I might draw a card that is, again, quote unquote complete, and you just took a third of your score needed to win.
Correct.
In a top pull. I mean, just top decking a card.
Yep.
That works in Ticket to Ride. I don't feel as content about it here.
Yeah, you could work your butt off and top deck 1 point. 1 point. 1 point. And then one guy walks up and does one thing and top decks 3 points.
Yeah.
And it just...
That's really my biggest beef with this game is that. The rest of it, I like. I'm not, like, my mind is not blown by any of it, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The scoring, though, man, how you win.
I mean, I guess you could
it's
say
very
that
unsatisfactory.
there are arguments against what we're saying. I mean, okay, well then you need to make sure you focus on this quest that's going to move that that faction's power token up further, so that those points that are those cards that are only 1 point will score you more points. Those quests might not be there though. That's the thing.
And just like in Ticket to Ride, once you complete that route, it's done. You can't keep growing it for more points. At some moment in the game, you just need more cards to score. And what you get is what you get. It might dovetail in nicely to what you've been doing already, and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Or it might literally be, hey, support the other group now. It's like, well, this is not good for me. This is 1 point. And it'll never be more than 1.
Well,
if I've already been pushing the other faction up,
right.
this is going to be a 1 point card. As soon as I can replace it, I will. So,
yeah, I don't know. I'm as annoyed as these guys are about that. Except I do agree with Z. Z gets a lot of garbage, and we perpetuate this, of course, about not liking long games. But the fact is Fallout, the board game, is too long. It really is. I like it, right?
Yeah, it's good.
And I like the idea and the theming of it, but it's really drawn out, and I wish that it could have been condensed in a better way. You're getting these point cards, and I'm not so worried about the number of points. I understand that. They're sometimes anticlimactic. It's like, oh, I did this big mission, and I got a point. And the next guy's like, oh, I got 3. So his mission was way cooler than mine. And some of those things are really hard to pull off, and you finally pull it off, and you don't get a lot for it, and that's a bummer. Now, I will say the mission part of the game I think is fantastic. I really think that's neat. How there's branching. I actually took them out and branched everything out so that each of the missions in the game uses about 1/3 of that deck. There's all different cards. There's a really cool thing. We don't want to spoil too much, but there's like a cool thing with the vault. You know, there's some really neat concepts of the game, and the storyline's good. I like the idea that you have these decisions that have repercussions and stick other cards into the deck.
Yes.
That sort of thing's great. We've seen other games. I love that, and it makes it so easy for them to expand this too. They'll be like, here's another mission, here's another stack of cards.
Yes.
Boom.
I mean, the next expansion could just be a bunch of scenarios.
Oh, absolutely.
Literally.
Yeah.
It could just be a bunch of scenarios. And that's where I think this game would probably be a little bit more shiny for me, is if it were more scenario based. And I'm not talking about the scenario cards that come in the thing. I'm talking about like the person who does this or is able to accomplish this first wins, instead of a point system. You know, I think that's where this would probably shine. And again, I'm coming from the point of never having played the video game, so that idea could be out in left field for all I know. But to me, the gameplay seems like it would work better in a scenario or a campaign-driven type format.
Well, I think that what Tom's talking about, the cards having branches, is very much like the video game, which is very much like Skyrim too. That's great, and I do agree that is the shining. That's the shining point in the game. This idea of following a quest. Once you complete a card, it might bring out 2 new ones. Choose which way you want to go. That's really neat.
Yeah, and the storyline is progressing too. It's like, oh wow, you'll see the same characters pop up again. You decide to slap a character at one point. That character will come back later on, maybe.
Or not save a dog.
Hey, man.
Horrible. horrible.
Yeah, and you can play pretty bad in this game,
Yeah.
right? Too. You can be like, I'm gonna be mean.
Just realize though that that's going to come back to bite you, because there was a point where you were vilified, and every single thing you turned over was like you got to fight somebody.
Yeah, that got kind of annoying. I don't know why. It wasn't
died
like I did
three
anything.
times and
Like I did anything wrong. So for me, overall, I enjoyed the game. I thought the downtime was minimal, but at the same time, I was a little frustrated sometimes because of like, ooh, you have 2 actions. I'm gonna rest and move, and okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 actions might take longer than that to the other players.
Right.
So I think the game probably would shine best. I've not played it solitaire, but I think it would shine really well solitaire. But if you're playing Fallout the board game solitaire,
Play the video game.
the video game exists. I mean, you know, but
Well,
so
this is, I guess, considerably less expensive than having to get a console and then buying the game as well.
I agree. But my biggest thing about this is I don't think I will play this 4 players, and you'd have to argue for me to play it 3 players, because it doesn't matter how many people are in the game.
No, except for points.
Except for points, right? It doesn't matter how many people are in a game. And it matters because I'm like, ooh, I'll go do that. Oh, you did that. I'm going over here. Oh, you did that. That's the only interaction that happens. And I can't shoot you
Yeah.
or do anything to you
right.
because it's based on a game that
Combat
is a
version.
game where there's 1 person.
Yes.
There is no 2 people playing
Multiplayer
Fallout together.
combat version.
I know there's mods and stuff, but there's no 2-player version of this, so you are essentially playing 4 solitaire games. So I might as well play 2. We can go back and forth. It's interesting to hear other people's stories, but there's not a lot of interaction. So for me, I'll give this half a thumb up. I like it. I like the idea. The production's amazing.
Yeah.
It's good, but the negatives bring it down for me to the point where I'd be lying if I said I'm going to play it again, I think. Now, if they do make Skyrim a board game, I'll play that. If they're like the same game, but Skyrim, I'd be like,
Come on, man.
do it. I'm shallow that way.
For me, I think I might play it again because I think I want to try it solitaire, just to see if it fixes any of the issues I had. And again, to reiterate, the issues are many of the same issues you had. It's really long. Scoring is a wild goose chase, it feels like. It's just very random. But the story is strong, and I do like the setting a lot. So I'm gonna tweak it up just a little bit. I'm gonna get that Pet Boy and just like to give it like I'm gonna give it that 1 thumb up. Okay.
Wow.
So again, if the theme really speaks to you, you're good with long games, and you're not as worried about the destination as you are about the journey. You don't care about if you win, if it's random roll.
That's it, Dad.
Then yes, I'll
That's
give
a
it
perfect
1 thumb up.
That's good. If you don't care who wins, Fall's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say anything. That was perfect. So
But you need to give it a thumb.
I'm not going to give him one of my thumbs.
It's Fallout, dude. You have to give a thumb.
Well, I tell you, you mentioned the downtime, and you didn't think it was that big. I thought the downtime was big for what you said, because your turn can come around and you just go do okay, I'm done.
Yes.
And then they do I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and it's this big turn, and you do the same thing, and then it comes back to me and it okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So downtime to me felt more of a thing than it was to Tom. I'm about where Z is, and it's really strange because I don't play solo games at all.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was going over the playthrough yesterday, I was like, I wonder if I should try this solo. And again, it's just that thing, because it's a
downtime. It solves a downtime issue, right? I mean, that's definitely one of the big ones.
And I don't like the scoring. I'm okay with the combat. I like the story arc that's there.
Yes.
So there were a lot of positives, and not a whole lot of negatives, but the negatives were kind of beefy.
Yes, that's
So
it, exactly. Yeah, there's only a couple of problems,
Right.
but they're really problematic.
Yeah, they are. So I'm there with 1 thumb up as well. So how does it? Or I don't know.
Yes,
That's.
Oh,
how
you're
it
doing
is.
the guy,
the Pip Boy.
Yeah,
the Pip Boy.
Yeah. Anyway,
which is Sam's favorite item too.
that's pretty. All right, so that's me. Probably about I don't know, maybe a 6 out of 10 probably for me.
All right, well, let us know what you think in the comments, which will
Yep.
probably involve you saying a lot of you guys didn't play it enough, therefore you're
You
not
have
Fallout
no idea
fans.
what's going
Also,
on,
you're
right.
idiots.
Yes.
But it's just our thoughts.
Yep.
See you next time. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia. Thank you.
Sam Healy. See you on the flip side, folks.
Thanks for watching our review today. For For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.